Let us discuss the next question. This is from 2022. In the Government of India Act of 1919, that is the Montague-Chelmsford reforms, the functions of the provincial government were divided into reserved and transferred subjects. Which of the following were treated as reserved subjects? So, in the Government of India Act 1919, the diarchy was introduced in the provinces. So, what is diarchy? The subjects of the government will be divided into the reserved subjects and the transferred subjects. The reserved subjects are important portfolios like the police, land revenue, which were to be administered by the Governor General and his Executive Council. Transfer subjects are those subjects which are of local importance, which were to be administered by the ministers. So this particular question is asking us not about diarchy, but within diarchy, which of the subjects were there in the reserved subjects and which of the subjects are there in the transferred subjects. Now the question is asking which of the following were treated as reserved subjects. So we have to see which of them are reserved subjects. Administration of justice. The justice, land revenue, police and all these important portfolios were kept with the Governor General and his council. So this was a reserved subject. Local self-government, health and education, these were all the transferred subjects. So this is incorrect. This is again a reserved subject. This is again a reserved subject because local self-government along with health and education, they are transferred subjects. So select the correct answer using the code given below. We know that 2 is the incorrect answer. If we eliminate 2 from the options, we will directly get the answer as C, that is 1, 3 and 4 as correct. So to know that local self-government is not a reserved subject but a transferred subject, that is the key to this question. Now let us go through the in-depth explanation of Government of India Act of 1919. This act is also known as the Montague-Chelmsford reforms, and the main purpose was to give the representation to the Indians in the governance. Like I already said, this act introduced diarchy at the provincial level, which divided the powers into 2 subjects, that is the reserved subjects and the transferred subjects. Reserved subjects are those which are administered by the governor and his executive council, and they had important portfolios like law and order, police, irrigation, justice, finance, land revenue. And when it comes to transferred subjects, these were administered by the nominated ministers who were elected from the legislative council, and the subjects of local importance like education, health, local self-governance, industry, agriculture, excise, these were all transferred subjects. What are the other provisions of the Government of India Act of 1919? This act tried to reduce the central control over the provinces. So what they tried is they came up with the devolution rules wherein the central government power and the provincial government's power, they demarcated and they came up with the decentralization of power. And for the first time, the bicameral legislature was introduced and majority of the members were to be chosen by direct elections. Also in the Viceroy's Executive Council, 3 out of the 6 members who were there in the Viceroy's Executive Council, they were supposed to be Indian members. And extending the separate electorates which was introduced in the previous act, now the separate electorates were introduced for the 6, the Indian Christians, the Anglo-Europeans and the Europeans. Even though the separate electorate was extended, the franchise, that is who can vote, that was actually limited to very few number of people, especially for people who had certain educational qualifications, people who were paying certain amount of tax, or people who was having certain amount of property. So it was not universal adult franchise but limited franchise. Also in 1926, the Central Public Service Commission was set up so that the recruitment of the civil servants take place. And when it comes to the budget, the provincial budget was separated from the central budget. Like I already said in the point number 1, this had devolution rules and demarcation of powers, also the devolution of powers from the center to the provincial level. So because of which, one of the implications was the provincial budget was separated from the central budget, and now the provinces, they were allowed to enact their own budget. These are all the other important provisions of Government of India Act of 1919. So coming back to the question, local self-government is the incorrect answer here, and we'll get the answer as C, 1, 3 and 4, which are administration of justice, land revenue, police. All of these are reserved subjects.